Welcome to IST's MEETWARE 3 tutorial. This tutorial will guide you through the setup of your new MEETWARE 3 software. You should have already installed the MEETWARE 3 software, and this is the first time you will be using the program. Let's begin. First, select the Light system from the drop-down list. Since this is the first time you have used the system, you will not be prompted for a password. If you set a password in the system preferences, which we will discuss more in a moment, you will be prompted for one at this point. When you first enter MEETWARE 3, you will see the Tips and Tricks screen. You can click through the tips or check this box if you don't want to see these again. You can also select whether or not you see the tip screen in the system preferences. You are now at the main menu. The first thing we will do is to set up your system preferences. System preferences will allow you to set MEETWARE 3 up according to your specific pool situation. From the main menu, we select Utilities and System. The default system that comes loaded with MEETWARE is the Light system. We will set up our own system. You can have up to 2 systems plus a test system in a regular MEETWARE 3 license. Click on New, and next we'll give our system a name. I have both a men's and a women's program that I like to keep separate since they swim in different seasons, so I will set this one up for the women's team. Each system should have a unique name with less than 20 characters. Once you have entered the system name, press Enter and type in the system folder name. This is the name of the folder in which all of the data will be stored within MEETWARE 3. It should not have any spaces or punctuation characters. Mine will be OH Girls. You now have the option of entering a password for the system. You can type whatever you want in this field. If you do not assign a password, you will not be prompted for one when you open the system. If you forget the password that you have assigned, you can simply type in GOIST to get into the system, and you can come here to change your password at any time. Now that we have the system set up, we need to set the preferences. We'll check Demo so that we can do timing without being hooked up to the computer timing interface. Here you can also select whether you want to see the tips when you start MEETWARE 3. We also need to set the number of lanes in the pool. I have 6, and my pool length is measured in 25 yards. For the scoreboard manufacturer, select the brand of scoreboard that you use. Mine is an IST, of course. And I have 1 scroll line, 6 fixed lines, and it's 16 character wide, or a single wide board. I only use one end for inputs. My pads are at the starting block end, so I have a pad, touchpad, as my primary input and 1 button as my backup input. My system is for a high school. This setting helps determine which dive tables and certain rule settings to use. This is a pretty standard setup for a system. If you want more information about the other items on the screen, you can take a look at the help files. The next thing we need to look at is the hardware setup. You'll need to exit System Preferences, go to Utilities, and set up Hardware. Here you can select the COM port that you are going to connect the timing box to. Only the available COM ports are available to select. If you do not know which COM port you are using, you can find out by looking in the Windows Device Manager. For more information on that, look at the Windows help files. That's all we need to worry about for now, so let's move on to entering your team. Once you have your system set up, you can enter your team information. From the main menu, click on Teams. This is the main team administration screen, which allows you to enter all kinds of information about the teams, including coaches' names and mailing addresses. Each new system comes with a demo team that you can use for practice. Let's enter our own team. To do this, click Add, and type in the name of the team you want to add. My team is Ottawa Hills. Press Enter, and then assign a team code. Team codes are a shortened way of identifying the team that will show up on reports and on the scoreboard. It can be up to 6 characters long, but the first 3 letters have to be unique for that team. Now you can enter as much information as you would like about the team. I usually enter the team's mascot, coaches, and captains if I know them. One important item to note is the checkboxes up next to mascot, the score this team and home team boxes. If you want a team to be able to score in meets, score this team needs to be checked. If the team that you have just entered is the home team for this system, as this one is, you will need to have the home team checked. This allows you to do new seasons and keep track of that team on certain reports. Feel free to fill in any other information about this team that you have. Once all the information is filled out, click OK to add them to the system. Now you can add another team, or if you want, delete a team from the system as long as they don't have any swimmers in the meet. Now let's move on to entering your roster. The roster allows you to put all of the swimmers on a team in the same place. There are also reports that allow you to print a roster or print mailing labels from the roster. Click on Athletes and Roster. This is the main roster administrator screen. On the top left is a list of teams in your system. If you haven't added the team for which you want to add the roster, you will need to go back and do that now. Otherwise, select the team from the list. Each team entered automatically has a name, no entry. To add a swimmer to the roster, click the Add button. Type in the last name, press Enter or Tab, and type in the first name. You do not have to enter a middle name or a nickname, but you do need to type in a class and a gender. You can also enter a birth date, an age, and a division, if you want to. If you want to be able to enter only the information that is required, you can click on the short form checkbox here. This will enable only the necessary fields and allow you to tab through quickly. Once you have finished entering the information, click OK. You can now enter the next athlete. If you need to edit an athlete, select them from the list and you can change any of the information. You can also delete an athlete as long as they have not been entered in a meet. If you have several athletes on a team that you need to make changes to, you can change them here in the grid as well. It makes it easier to change the information quickly. Now, let's go set up a point system. Point systems tell MEETWARE 3 how to score each meet or even individual events. To set up a point system, go to Utilities and Points. MEETWARE 3 comes with a standard dual meet point system set for 6 places. We will set up a point system for a timed finals that we might use for an invitational. Begin by clicking Add, and then type in the name of the point system. You have up to 30 characters and you want to make it as descriptive as possible. We'll call this one Invite Timed Finals. Next, you need to select what kind of scoring method you will use from the drop-down list. The scoring methods follow the rules laid out in the National Federation of High Schools Rulebook, which is the set of rules used for the high school system type. We will select the timed finals scoring method. For more information about the different scoring methods, please refer to the MEETWARE 3 help files. Now enter the number of scoring places for individuals and for relays. You can either type the number in or use the spinner buttons to increment the number up or down. Next, enter the maximum number of scoring places per team. This will limit how many athletes or relays from each team can score. The team may enter more than this number, but anyone beyond the maximum will not be able to score points. If you are running a JV varsity or a freshman meet, you can check these boxes here. If you are not running separate events for JV varsity or freshman, please don't check these boxes as it will cause problems with your scoring system. Once you've got everything filled in, click OK. Now you can enter the number of points for each scoring place. You will notice that even though there are only 4 places for relays, there is space to put points for up to 6. You do not have to fill those spaces in, or you can fill them in with zeros. Now we'll go ahead and set up an event list. Event lists are exactly what they sound like, a list of events that will be contested in the meet. To create an event list, click on Utilities and Event Lists. This is the main event list screen. MEETWARE comes preloaded with the NISCA standard high school event list for boys and for girls. You can create your own event list to fit the meet that you want to run. To create a new event list, click the New button. Enter a name for your event list, something descriptive and less than 30 characters. And press Enter. To accept the event list name, click OK. You can now select the wording of the gender depending on your preference. The gender will be part of each event name, and you can change this at any time. To put events into the new event list, click on the Add button on the lower left side of the screen. This will take you to the event screen. Here you select all the options for each of your events. The events are numbered sequentially, beginning with event number 1. You have the choice of it being an individual or relay event, a female, male, mixed, or alternate, which means that if you start with female, then the next event will automatically be set up as a male event. You have the option of doing freshman, JV, varsity, or none of those, choosing an age range, a distance, the stroke, the low qualifying time, and the high qualifying time, and also the rounds, whether you're doing a finals event only or prelims and finals, both. Let's create a 200 medley relay. We choose relay. We're doing female. I don't use JV, varsity, or freshman. I don't require an age range. Doing 200 and medley, and I don't care about the times. You can also see here that for relays, you have the choice for defining how many legs and the stroke and distance for each of the legs in the relay. This allows you to put together some special relays if you need to. Once we finish setting up the event, we go ahead and click OK. And you can see that the name of the last event that was added is listed here at the top of the screen, and the event number has been automatically updated. Now let's create an individual 50 free event. You can name this event whatever you want by checking on the username box here at the bottom and typing in the name as you want it to appear on reports and on the scoreboard. When you're finished, click OK. And you can see that this is now the name of the new event, and event number 3 is next. When you are finished creating all of your events, click Done to return to the event list screen. If you need to edit an event, click on the event name. This will take you back to the event screen, and you can make any changes that you need to. When you are done, click Done. If you want to change the order of your event list, click the Reorder button here. You can then click and drag the box next to the event name to the correct position. All of the events will be renumbered in sequence. When you're finished, click OK, or Cancel if you don't want to save your changes. Now we can go ahead and set up a meet. Before you can set up a meet, you have to have the teams, point systems, and event lists that you are planning to use set up. If you have not done that, please go back and do so now. To set up a meet, click on Meets and Meet Setup. This is the Meet Setup screen. Every time you run a meet, you must set up a new meet. To create a new meet, click on the New button. Type the meet name into the box. Your meet name should be descriptive and less than 30 characters. For our purposes, we will set up a demo meet. Now press Enter. You can change the date that the meet will be run by typing it in here. You can also fill in the rest of the information, but that is optional. Next, select the point system that you want to use. We will run a standard dual meet using the dual meet point system. You also need to select the event list, which will be the standard Girls High School event list. You cannot exit out of Meet Setup unless you have selected these two items. You also have to select the teams that are participating in the meet. Click Choose. Here's where you select your teams. On the left are the teams that have been entered into your system. On the right are teams that you have selected to be in this meet. To select a team, click on the team on the left and then click the right arrow. Or you can simply double-click on the team name. If the team you need is not on the list, you can click on the New Team button and add their information into the Team Administrator screen. When you have finished, you will then be able to select that team from the list. When you have your team selected, click Accept, and you will be returned to the Meet Setup screen. A quick way to check to make sure that your teams are entered correctly is to click on the Team Scores button. This will also show you which teams are entered and whether or not they are set up to score. As you can see, the demo team is not currently marked as eligible to score. For our purposes in this meet, we want them to be able to score, so we have to click the eligible checkbox. And we'll make them eligible to score for every meet, so we'll just make this permanent. Clicking on the Edit Team Information box will take you to the Team Administrator screen and allow you to select a team and change any of the information. Now let's look at the meet configuration. Click the Change button. Here you will find options for displaying information on the scoreboard and how things are printed. I typically do my scoring online, which means it's scored as the meet is running and is not waiting for me to go back and score it. We print places first to last and usually print one copy. I ask to have the team scores printed. Sometimes I want them, sometimes I don't. We print the results first to last and one copy. Since I don't have a second printer to do ribbon labels, I leave these set to 0. I ask to have the team scores shown on the scoreboard, just in case I don't want them to. We show the places last to first, and we do not alternate names and times after the heat on our scoreboard. I do require the operator to arm the timing, and I do not run co-ed meets. This is a pretty typical setup for a high school team. Once you're finished, you click Accept. If any of the values have changed, you'll be asked if you want to save these settings as default. If this is typically how you're going to run your meets, just click Yes. That way, the next time when you set up a new meet, these settings will automatically be set that way and you shouldn't have to change them. Now that we have the meet set up, we can go ahead and seed it. Once you have the meet set up, you can seed it. Seeding a meet is how you tell the computer which athletes you want in which lanes for each event. To seed a meet, click on Meets and Seed a Meet. This is the Seating Preferences screen, where you set up how you want the meet to be seated. The individual entries per team per event tells you how many swimmers a single team can enter in any event. If you want to be able to enter exhibition swimmers, set this number to the maximum number of swimmers a team can put into an event, regardless of how many can score. The number of relay entries per team per event is the same. Set this for the maximum number of relays that you will allow an event, regardless of how many can score. Set the scoring swimmers per team per event to the maximum number of swimmers or relays from a single team that can score points in an event. Since you set the number of entries to 6, but only 3 of the swimmers on any team can score, any swimmer with an entry number higher than 3 will automatically be assigned as exhibition. More on this a little later. Next, assign the lanes. The computer knows what kind of meet we are running based on the point system that was selected in Meet Setup. Because we are running a dual meet with 2 teams, we will be assigning either odd or even lanes. Note the team code listed here. This is the first team in the list, so make sure you pay attention to this. We will assign the even lanes to the demo team. For a dual meet, the entry type will be position, meaning that my fastest swimmer will be position 1, next fastest position 2, and so on. Position 1 swimmers will be seated in the middle lanes, 2 swimmers in the next lanes out, and 3 swimmers in the outer lanes. You will see this more clearly when we seed the meet. You can also seed by time, but for a dual meet that isn't usually necessary. The seed method tells the computer what set of rules to use when placing swimmers in lanes. These rule sets are based on the NFHS rules. Because we're running a dual meet, we'll select the dual seed method. The other option you have is how to order the heats, either slow to fast, which is the standard, or fast to slow. You can also check this box to use the NFHS entry rules. This will put up error messages if a swimmer exceeds the maximum number of events as determined by the NFHS rules. Once you have selected your options, you are ready to seed the meet. You have the choice of entering the data by event or by name. To begin, we will enter the athletes by event. Click on the Enter Edit by Event button. This is where you will enter athletes into the meet. Before you begin entering athletes, you have a couple of options for how you view the information on the screen. By selecting the round, you can limit the events to show only the round into which you want to enter the athletes. By selecting Show Eligible, you can limit the athletes that display in the roster to only those that are eligible for the event that you have selected. And by selecting Selected Teams, you will display only the entries for the team that you are currently working on. First, select the team to enter athletes from. We'll begin with Ottawa Hills. Now select the event that you want to start with on the event list. We'll begin with the first event, the 200 medley relay. Because this is a relay, you will see the Add Relay button to the right of the event list. To add a relay for this team, click the Add Relay button. This is the relay seating screen. Here you can see that the relay ID has automatically been assigned as A since this is the first relay that we have entered. On the left are the relay entries. The first 4 are relay legs 1 through 4. The last 4 are the optional alternates. On the right is the team roster. To add a swimmer to a relay, you can either double-click them from the roster list or type the first characters of their last name and use the arrow keys to highlight them and press Enter to add them to the relay. If the swimmer is not on the roster, click New Athlete. This will take you to the Roster Administrator screen where you can add the athlete. When you are finished, click the Return button, and you can now select the athlete from the roster. Once you have all 4 names in, you can edit the relay. To move a swimmer to a different position, click on the gray box to the left of their name and drag them to the position that you want them to be in. This shifts everyone else down 1. If you need to replace a swimmer with someone else from the roster, click on the swimmer in the relay so that they are highlighted, and then select the new swimmer from the roster. Once you have the relay the way you want it, click Accept. If you have not entered the maximum number of relays allowed, you will be asked if you want to add another. We'll click Yes. You'll notice that this relay has automatically been assigned as Relay B for its ID, since it's the second relay that we have entered. If you know that a team is going to have a relay, but you don't know who they are going to enter, you can click on the No Name button. You will then be asked if you want to make all of the names for the relay blank. Clicking No will make just one name blank. Clicking Yes will put blanks in for all 8 spaces in the relay. Once you are finished with the relay, click Accept. And click No if you don't have any more relays to enter for this team and this event. This will take you back to the entry screen. You will notice that the 2 relays have been entered into the seed data list. If you need to edit a relay, click on the relay name. This will take you back into the seed relay screen. To replace a swimmer with another swimmer, click on the swimmer in the relay first so that they are highlighted, and then double-click on the swimmer in the roster that you want to replace them with. You can also move the swimmers the way we did before by clicking and dragging them. When you are finished editing the relay, click Accept. To delete a relay from the event, double-click on the team code for that relay. You will then be asked if you want to delete the relay from the event or the meet. For relays, you must select Delete from Event. It will then ask if you are sure that you want to delete the relay. Click Yes to delete it, or click No if you do not want to delete the relay. Now let's do an individual event. Click on the next event that you want to put entries into. We'll do the 50 free as an example. Because this is an individual event, the roster is now available on the right. To enter a swimmer into the event, you can either double-click on them from the roster, or type the first few characters of their last name into the text box, and use the arrow keys to highlight them and press Enter to add them to the event. If the swimmer that you want to enter is not in the list, click New Athlete. This will again take you to the Roster Administrator screen where you can enter the athlete into the team's roster. Click Return to go back to the Seed Data screen, and you can now select your swimmer. To replace a swimmer that you have already added, click on the person you want to replace so that they are highlighted in yellow, and then select the swimmer you want to replace them with from the roster. To delete a swimmer from an event, double-click on the team code next to the swimmer's name. Select Delete from Event, and the swimmer will be deleted. Now let's go ahead and enter the rest of the swimmers in this event. I'm going to have an exhibition heat of the 50 free. Even though that will be swum first, I enter my 3 varsity swimmers in first in order of speed. This is my fastest. She is the next fastest, and she's the slowest of my varsity swimmers. Now I'll go ahead and add the fastest of my exhibition swimmers. You will see that the position is 4, and that the status has automatically been assigned as exhibition. This is because when we set the seating preferences, we set the number of entries per team to 6 and the number of scoring swimmers to 3. Anyone with a position greater than 3 automatically becomes an exhibition swimmer. Now let's enter the last 2 exhibition swimmers. Notice that because I reached the maximum number of entries for this team, it automatically moved me on to the next event, which is diving. Diving entries are the same as swimming when you seed by position. Your best diver goes in first, second best is second, and so on. That way, they will be ordered correctly once the meet is seeded. One other thing to notice is the number of entries listed next to the event. This lets you know at a glance how many athletes have been entered into each event. The other option is to enter your athletes by name. To do this, click on the By Name button. You'll see that this screen is very similar to the By Event screen, other than the background color and the fact that it's titled Seed by Name. Select the team from the grid, and then select the athlete for whom you want to enter the events. On the right side are all of the events that you can select. Double-click on an event to assign it to the athlete, then enter their seed time or position and status. You'll notice that any status over 3 is automatically marked as exhibition. When entering the athlete into a relay, you will be taken to the same relay screen that you saw when entering by event. Enter the whole relay here. And then you will be returned to the Seed by Name screen when you are finished. You can switch back and forth between the 2 screens depending on how you want to enter your data. I'll go ahead and finish entering athletes in for this meet. Once you've got all your entries in, click the Seed Events button to begin seeding the meet. This is the seeding screen. Before you can seed any events, you have to have entered athletes into the events. You can see here how many athletes have been entered into any event. If you only want to seed a single event or several events, you can click on these selected checkboxes to place a check in it. To seed all of the events in a meet, click the Select All button. All of the events that have entries now have check marks in the selected box. To seed all of these selected events, click Seed Selected. If diving was selected, you'll be taken to this screen. The box on the left shows the order in which the teams are set to dive. Typically, the home team dives last. To change the order of the teams, click and drag the gray box next to the team code to the position that you want it. On the right is the dive order. This should be listed with the weakest diver in position 3 going first, and the strongest divers in position 1 going last. You can change the dive order by clicking and dragging the gray box on the left of the diver's name to position them in the list where you want them. Once you are satisfied with the dive order, click Seed to continue seeding to the rest of the events. As you can see, seeding happens very quickly. Once an event has been seeded, you can click on the event name and see the seeded heats below. As you can see, the A relay or first relays are in the middle lanes, the B or second relays are in the next lanes out, and the C or third relays are in the farthest outside lanes. Demo team is in the even lanes, and Ottawa Hills is in the odds. Looking at the 50 freestyle, you can see that there are 2 heats. The exhibition swimmers are in Heat 1, and the varsity swimmers are in Heat 2. If you want to move swimmers around, click on their name and drag them to the lane that you want them in. This will switch that swimmer with whoever was in the lane previously. You can also change the status of a swimmer here. Once you have made a manual change, it is not necessary to reseed the event. If you do, any manual changes will be lost. Looking at the 200 IM, there are also 2 heats. Notice that Ottawa has 4 swimmers entered in the IM, and Demo only has 2, so there's an empty lane in the varsity heat and 1 swimmer in the exhibition heat. There are 2 ways to deal with this. The first is to move the exhibition swimmer into the empty lane and then delete the now empty heat by clicking on Delete Empty Heats. The other thing you can do is to change how the event is seeded. First, we'll reseed this event so that everything is back the way it was. Now, to put any exhibition swimmers in empty varsity lanes, you need to uncheck the Put Exhibitions in a Separate Heat checkbox. Now when we seed the event, it gives us this. Demo has 2 scoring and no exhibition swimmers, and Ottawa has 3 scoring and 1 exhibition swimmers. If you want the swimmers to swim in their team's assigned lanes, answer yes. To put the exhibition swimmer in the empty varsity lane, click No. Now it has seeded only 1 heat, with the exhibition Ottawa Hills swimmer in the empty demo lane. This option is more useful if you have several events that you need to change. Now that you have the entries in and the meet seeded, you are ready to time the meet. Before you run a meet, it is always a good idea to check your equipment, even if it was working the last time. If you run into any problems during diagnostic, please recheck all the cables and connections to make sure that they are properly plugged in. If you are still having problems, you can refer to the MEETWARE 3 help files for diagnostic and troubleshooting advice. If you still can't get it to work, please contact IST for support. To check your equipment, click on Meets and Diagnostics. First, let's check the scoreboard. Since we are in demo mode, we are not hooked up to a physical scoreboard. However, it will still load the test pattern onto the computer. This pattern shows the row and column number for each panel on the scoreboard. Carefully compare this pattern to the pattern on the scoreboard. They should match exactly. This pattern is for a 6-lane, 16-character-wide alphanumeric scoreboard. If your board is set up differently, you may see a different pattern. Once you are sure that they match, click Continue. The scoreboard and screen will now run through the character set. Use this to make sure that all of the LED clusters are working properly. When you are sure the board is working, click Exit. Now let's check the computer timing interface, deck cables, touchpads, and backup buttons. Click on Meets, Diagnostics, and Deck Cable. This is the deck cable diagnostic screen. Because we are in demo mode, you will see the touchpad simulator on the screen. When you are running an actual meet, this will not be visible. If it is, you need to go out and make sure that demo mode is unchecked in System Settings. If the timing box is plugged in and working correctly, the status will be green. And you will also see markers counting ticks. To test each touchpad and backup button, press on them one at a time. We will simulate that by clicking on each pad and button on the touchpad simulator. As you press a pad or a button, you will see the I/O number and the name of the device appear on the screen and on the scoreboard to verify that it is working. You should also fire the start device and press the backup start plunger button. When you are finished with the test, click Exit. Now we can time a meet. Now that we have everything set up and our equipment tested, we can finally time a meet. Click on Meets and Timing Mode. This will take you to the timing screen. The first thing you need to do is select the meet that you want to time. When you come into timing, it will bring you to the last meet that you were working with. If you haven't done anything with a meet, it takes you to the first one in the list. Click on the Meet drop-down list and select the meet that you want to time. Next, select the event that you want to time. When you select the meet, this defaults to the first untimed event in the event list. Before we start timing, let's take a quick tour of the timing screen. This shows you which heat you are on and how many heats are in the event. You can click on the drop-down list to move to a different heat if there is one. Here we have the lane number, status, team code, swimmer or relay name, the finish time, the splits, and the lap number. You can change the status, team code, and swimmer name from here before the race starts if you need to make seating changes before you begin the event. We'll get into how to do that a little later. To begin timing an event, you need to arm the system by clicking the Arm button. Since we are in demo mode, this brings up the touchpad simulator. It also puts the word quiet up on the scrolling line of the scoreboard so that the official knows that you are ready to start the race. You will also notice that the timing status has changed to Wait for Start. To start the race, the official will fire the start device and someone should press the starter's backup button that is plugged into the front of the computer timing interface. We'll start the race by clicking on the Start button on the touchpad simulator. Once the clock starts, you will see it running both here and on the scoreboard. Most of the time, you have to wait 15 seconds for the touchpad to activate before it can be hit, but when you are in demo mode, you only have to wait 5 seconds. The first leg of the relay has completed, and you can see the subtracted splits have been recorded on the screen as well as on the scoreboard. The splits are yellow because it was less than 19 seconds. Unless you have a very fast swimmer in the pool, a 19-second split usually means that someone hit the touchpad in error. Probably they waited too long in the water and bumped it as they were climbing out of the pool. This is the second leg split, and as you can see, one of the lanes didn't register a split. If this happens, or if someone hit a pad early climbing out of the pool, you can correct it by clicking on the lap number button and moving it to the correct number. In this case, we need to bump it up because that swimmer didn't hit the touchpad hard enough to trigger it when they finished. You can see that it put the split time in as when the lap was counted up. This may lead to inaccurate split times, but you will get the correct finish time. Here you see a time highlighted in red. This tells the operator that there was a backup time received, but no pad time. If this happens once in a while, it is usually due to human error. However, if it happens consistently, you may need to check the touchpad in that lane. That's the end of the race. If you had the confirm heat results clicked, it will now take you to the confirm screen. This is the heat confirm screen. Here you can enter disqualifications or DQs and correct finish times as necessary. The lanes are listed in order of finish, with the fastest at the top and the slowest at the bottom. It shows the finish or official time for each lane, the time recorded by the touchpad, and the time recorded by the backup button or buttons. It also displays any errors on the lane. You can see that for the first place team, lane 1, there was a pad time of 1:44.60 and a backup time of 1:45.40. The finish time is the same as the pad time. For lane 2, there is an error that there was a missed backup and the finish time is the same as the pad time. You do not necessarily have to adjust the time for a missed backup, but if you get a lot of those, you will either need to tell your button pusher to pay attention or check the equipment. For lane 3, the error is no pad, which means that either the swimmer did not hit the touchpad hard enough to register or there was a touchpad malfunction. In this case, the backup time is taken as the official finish time. For lane 4, the error is that there is a difference greater than 0.03 between the touchpad and the backup button. If you are sure that the pad was working correctly, then the problem is most likely with the backup button operator. If the touchpad was late, it is often due to a swimmer not hitting it hard enough the first time, then bumping it once they finished the race and were leaning on the wall. The order of finish, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this case, will be displayed on the scoreboard. If the order is correct and agrees with what the official has, you may not need to make any adjustments. If there is a problem with the order of finish, you can hand enter a watch time or a backup time if you have one, or a time that will make the order of finish match what the referee has, since he is the ultimate authority. Click on the finish time for that lane and swipe it. Then type in the backup time without using any punctuation. And press enter. This will be recorded as the official finish time on the final reports. If you need to disqualify a swimmer or a relay, click on the status of the lane and change it to DQ. Once you have finished and you're sure it is correct, click OK. The changes will show on the scoreboard, and when you're ready to continue to the next event, click Yes. If you selected to ask when the team scores were printed or displayed, it will ask you now. Now let's take a look at some other situations that might arise when you're timing an event. We'll run the 50 free as an example. First, if you need to deck scratch a swimmer, someone has decided not to swim in the event and you were told about it just before the race began, click on the status of their lane and change it to off. If the coach wants to change the name of a swimmer in an event, click on the swimmer's name and select a new swimmer from the roster. Now, since one of the swimmers scratched, there is an open lane. The other coach decides he wants to put another exhibition swimmer into that empty lane. To do this, change the status to exhibition or OK if they're not going to be an exhibition swimmer. Change the team code to the other team and select the swimmer from the roster. Now you've got everyone where they belong, so go ahead and arm the system. The starter starts the race and then gives a false start signal. Click the stop button, which used to say arm, and you will see this box. If you click the stop button in error, select continue timing and no one will know the difference. If there was a false start and you need to restart the swimmers, select stop and restart to reset the timing screen as if you had never started the race. If you want to just pretend that you ran the heat and put hand times in, select stop and marked as timed. Once you've made your selection, click OK. So we'll rearm the system. The starter starts the race, And everything is fine until the freshman in lane 1 gets a cramp and has to stop at the end of the pool. To stop timing the lane, you can either turn the lane off by clicking on the status and turning it off, or click the Stop Lane button and select the lane. If you turn a lane off, it will act as if it had never timed the lane at all. If you click the Stop Lane button, it will record a 0 time, and you will need to either put in a hand time or turn the lane off in the heat confirmation screen. Okay, looks like everybody else made it through this heat all right. Because we stopped the lane with Stop Lane, it was recorded as a 0 time. You have to fix this before you can move on, so you either need to change the time to put them into the correct spot or change the status to off or DQ. And now we can move on to the second heat of the 50 free. That's most of what you'll see happening in timing. Now let's run the diving event. This is the diving screen. Before you begin, I should note that it is always a good idea to have someone writing the judges' scores onto the dive sheet as a backup to the computer operator. While the computer never does the math incorrectly, occasionally the person typing in the numbers makes a mistake. If you have a written backup, correcting these mistakes are very easy. The first thing we need to do is to check to make sure that the number of divers, the number of dives, and the number of judges is set correctly. We have 6 divers entered, so that's fine. A standard dual meet has 6 dives, but since we're practicing, we'll set it down to 2. We'll use 3 judges, but you can set it to whatever you use. Diving is scored based on the NFHS rules for the number of judges. If you have time before the diving event begins, you can preload the dives for each diver. You can also do this in offline scoring prior to the meet. To do this, right-click on the diver's name and type in the dive number for each dive, including the letter. Click Done to accept the list. You can do this for every diver, but for now we'll just do it for the first diver. Once you're ready and you're sure everything is correct, click the Start button. You'll see that the first diver in the list is highlighted in green, and their name and current route are listed at the top of the screen. As the announcer reads the first dive number for the diver, you will need to type it into the dive number box, unless you preloaded the dives, in which case it is already there, and you just need to press Enter to accept the dive. Our first diver is doing a 101C. Notice that the DD and description are automatically filled in. When the judges display their scores, you can type them in. To enter a score of 4.0, you can either press 4 space or 4 enter. For 4.5, you can type 4.5 or 4.4. For 3.5, you can type 3.3. Once you've entered the last score, press Enter again or click on the OK button to accept the scores and display them on the scoreboard. The green bar now moves to the next diver and the dive number field clears so that you can enter the next dive. This one wasn't preloaded, so we'll need to type it in. She is doing a 103B. This diver forgot what she was doing and performed the dive as a tuck, not as a pike, and the judges gave her all zeros. You can either type zeros into the score boxes or click the Failed Dive button to fail the diver and move on to the next diver. This diver is doing a 103C. The judges give it a 5, 5, 5.5. Oops, I mistyped that last dive number and I just now realized it. To go back to the last diver, click Last Dive. This brings the last diver's dive number and score back so that you can make corrections to either one. This should have been a 102C. And I can correct any scores if I mistyped those as well. Click OK to move to the next diver. Our next diver is doing a 103A. It was a good dive, but she seems to have hurt herself. The coach asks to withdraw her from the competition. To do this, click the stop button to stop diving. You can then go change her position to off, so that the next time through the list she will not come up. This is the same way that you handle a disqualification or DQ. Once you've changed the position, click Start, and it will pick up right where you left off. This has been a pretty eventful diving event, so let's just skip ahead to the end. Okay, our last diver is performing her last dive, a 301B. Her scores are 4.5, 5, and 4. Diving is now completed, and it asks if we're ready to score diving. If you need to make any corrections or changes, you can do it now, so click No. If you need to make any changes to the scores, click on the total score for that diver. Here you can change any DD or score that was entered. When you are finished, click Exit. When you've finished making all of your changes, you need to score diving. Diving is the only event in MEETWARE 3 that does not automatically score when it is complete. To score diving, click on the Score button. This will score the event, add that to the total team scores, and move you on to the next event. Again, if you had selected Ask to Printing and Showing Team Scores, it will do that now. Once you have finished the meet, there is always the possibility of needing to do corrections. In offline scoring, you can enter a missed DQ, change a status on a swimmer, edit names, times, and splits. This allows you to move through the meet very quickly and then go back and make any corrections later. To get to offline scoring, click on Meets and Offline Scoring. This is the offline scoring screen. You'll notice that it looks a little bit like the timing screen. As in timing, the first thing you need to do is pick your meet. Let's take a look at some of the things that you can do in offline. If you need to change the name or order of swimmers for a relay, click on the relay name. This takes you to the relay entry screen and allows you to move or replace a swimmer the same way you did in seating. When you're satisfied with the relay, click Accept. The other thing you can do with the relay time is correct the split times. To do this, right-click on the finish time. This will bring up the splits for the relay, and you can enter in the corrected splits. Once you are finished, you can enter the correct final time, or you can press Enter to accept the time based on the total of the entered splits. You will notice that any time that you entered by hand is highlighted in yellow, whether it was entered on the heat results screen during the meet or here in offline scoring. This lets you know at a glance that there might have been a problem with that lane. You can also change the status of a relay by clicking on the status. You will notice that once I made a change on the screen, the Score button gets enabled. When you are finished making changes to that event, you can click the Score button to rescore the event with those changes. If you have to make changes in several events, make your changes, then click the Score All checkbox and click the Score button. This will rescore all of the events in the meet with any changes that you made. You can also print the results for the event, add or delete a heat as necessary. That is a brief overview of offline scoring. For more in-depth information, please consult the MEETWARE 3 help files. Now let's look at some of the reports you can run. To print results from the meet, click Reports and Meet Results. First, make sure that you have the right meet selected. You have several options for reports. The most popular for a two-team dual meet is usually the dual meet report. You can choose how many copies to print, whether or not to preview the report, and which format to print it in, printer, HTML, or PDF. The dual meet report follows the standard format for high school dual meets. It shows the swimmer's name, final times, place, and points for both teams on a single page. It also shows a tally of the score throughout the meet and the final score at the bottom with a place for the official to sign. To print the report that you are previewing, click the print icon here. If you decide you don't want this format, click the door icon to exit without printing it. You can also print one-column reports, which gives you the option to print the heat designations. If you don't print heat designations, the swimmers will be listed by final time from fastest to slowest in each event. This report shows the swimmers' names, final times, and points for each event, but it takes up a lot of paper. A smaller option is to print the two-column report, which prints the same information in a more compact format. You can also choose to add the splits, the team scores, and the seed times to any of these reports. Many areas also like to report their scores to the local newspaper. The newspaper report will create a text file that you can then fax or email to your local paper. The options that you have are how many relay and individual names to report. My paper only puts in the first place finisher in each event, and the width for the column of the report. This will depend on your local paper, but the default is set to 90. Once you click Print, you will be asked where you want to save the file. Pick a place that you can find easily. I like to put it on my desktop, and give it a descriptive name. This will generate a text file that you can open in Microsoft Notepad or a similar program, and then can be either faxed or emailed to your local paper. For the divers, you might want to print dive sheets, which are also found under Reports and Print Dive Sheets. Make sure that you have the correct meet selected and the event, and then select Final Copy to print the completed dive sheets. From here, you can also print blank copies for the divers to fill out before the meet. Announcer copies can be printed once you have pre-entered your dives into the meet. This will allow your announcers to have a clean copy that they can read easily. Other reports that most coaches like to have are splits for their teams. To print splits, select Reports and Splits. Again, make sure that you have the correct meet selected. You can either print the splits for all of the teams in the meet at once, or you can print the splits for a single team. When you select all teams, each team's split report will print as a separate report, and you can preview them each individually. This is the split report for the demo team, and this is the report for Ottawa Hills. There are many other reports that you can print, but these are the most useful at the end of the dual meet. Only one more thing to do before you go, and that is to make a backup of your system. Backing up is probably the single most important thing you can do in MEETWARE 3. If you back up frequently, you will never need to restore from a backup. Inevitably, though, if you do not back up, you are going to encounter some catastrophic failure that will make you wish you had. Such is the nature of technology. Before you do the backup, make sure that you have a safe place to keep it, either on a CD, DVD, USB thumb drive, or other removable media. You can also back up to a network drive if you have one available. Please do not back up your system to your hard drive. If your hard drive crashes, you will lose both your data and your backup. To back up the system that you are in, click Utilities, Backup, and Backup. Click on the Browse button and select the place that you want to store your backup. I'll store mine on my USB drive. You also have the option, if your computer is on the internet, to upload your backup to IST. This will send a copy of your zip file to an IST server where you can store it or where an IST support person can look at it if you need us to. To run the backup utility, click the Zip button. This will zip your backup to the selected drive in a zip file format, which takes up less space. Zipped backup files can also be emailed to IST if you encounter a problem that you would like us to take a look at. Backup files are given a standard name as backup_system folder name, so mine is backup_ohgirls. Anytime you do a backup, it is the same name, so if you put a backup in the same spot as an older one, it will overwrite the old one. If you want to keep older backups, use Windows Explorer to find the file and rename it so that it won't be overwritten. Just remember that when you restore it, the file name has to be backup_system folder name. Speaking of restoring, in the event that you need to go back to one of your backups, click the Utilities, Backup, and Restore. Click the Browse button and find the backup file that you want to restore. And then click Restore. If you selected the correct file, remember it has to be named backup_system folder name. It will restore your system and you are back in business. You also have the option of restoring your old system settings if you want to. Those are the basics for setting up a system for the first time and running your first meet. Practice is a good thing, so set up a practice meet of your own and run through a couple of events in demo mode. If you have any questions, you can check out our extensive help files located here, or contact our support staff. Thanks for purchasing IST's MEETWARE 3 and have a great meet.